Hey guys, today I am here to talk to you about my tier interventions. So at my school, what we do is we have time set aside for our tier time. We have tier reading and tier math. Since I only teach reading, I teach tier reading twice a day, and it's for 30 minutes. So let's talk a little bit about what tier is and how it's different than just your regular instruction time. So at the beginning of the year, I really had a hard time like figuring that out, and like, isn't it the same as like my workshop time? But it's not. It's kind of different. So my reading block is set up to where I usually teach about 30 to 45 minutes of whole group. Usually that will not look like me sitting and talking to my class. It's like an activity, like a collaborative, hands-on activity that I do with my kids. And then we break off and we do our cafe menu, like our cafe time where they read to self, and then I go around and I individually conference with them. In my classroom tour, I kind of showed you my board where they take their name and they put it on what goal they're working on. So that's what they do during that workshop time. So during my whole group time, we are working on 5th grade skills. And so when they're collaborating with each other, they're working on 5th grade standards that they need to know in 5th grade. And then in my workshop time, they're working on goals for their read to self, things that are going to help them become better readers. During tier time, we're going back and filling in gaps. Some of my students are reading at a 2nd or 3rd grade level. So during my tier time, I'm able to really find the areas of difficulty that each kid is struggling with. For my tier time, I do reading menus. And each menu is differentiated for what that student needs. So I have here 3 different folders from 3 different students, and it's kind of is a good reflection of the different levels I have in my classroom. I have some high, medium, and lows. So let's look at what I do. So this is what their reading menus look like. So there's different skills that they are working on: accuracy, fluency, comprehension, and retell in days. Now this particular student, his main focus, and he knows that his focus is fluency. So the things that he has to do every single day is he has to do his sight words and fluency phrases booklet, and he has to do his time fluency passages. So that looks like this. So his fluency passages, he has this box of cards, and all of these are just short little passages, and he gets his iPad and he times himself, and then he sees how long it takes him to read the card, and then he records it on his recording card, and he does that 3 times in a row. So every day he'll read, so this day he'll read Winging It 3 times in a row. This day he'll read All About the Fur 3 times in a row. And that's really going to help them with their fluency. So that's one of the things that he knows that he has to do every single day. And then at the end of the 30 minutes, I usually give, when there's a minute left in class, I have them write down. I always remind them to write down what they did for the day. If they worked with me, that way I know if they worked with me, then that's why there's some stuff might not be done. And so they just kind of list down what they do. It really helps keep them accountable. So for their fluency, they can also work on their sight words. So he knows that when he's working on fluency, he needs to master all of the words and phrases in this book before he can go on to the next book. So I have like 6 more of these that just get harder and harder. So, and they're phrases basically. And so once he thinks he has mastered the list of words along with the phrase, he comes to me, he reads it. If he gets it perfect and he's able to do it quickly with good fluency, I give him a little sticker, and then he goes on to the next one. And then he'll keep doing that until he masters his whole book. So once he finishes his fluency, he knows that his next goal that he's working on is accuracy. So accuracy, we have accuracy word pairs and we have word ladders. Accuracy word pairs are really awesome. It's a really great way for kids to work on their accuracy. So he gets one of these accuracy pair cards and he'll practice reading this out loud. Year, your, lost, lots, can, can't, no, on, left, felt, step, pest, cap, camp. And he'll practice that and practice that. And there's other people in his group who are also working on the same skills, and so they will test each other. It's great. I absolutely love the accuracy word pairs for working on accuracy. I think it really, really helps them really pay attention to the letters and the sounds that they're making. Have them do like 2 word ladders a week, because kids will get like stuck on it and like that's all they'll do. And while I do really like the word ladders, I think it's really good for vocabulary, but I don't want them to only be doing that. I would rather them be working on fluency and other things. So I do let them do 2 of these word ladders because they love it, and it is good for them for vocabulary skills. So that's another thing that they can work on, are these word ladders. So those are obviously activities for students who are kind of struggling in reading. And so, but I do have a few who are doing this set of activities. And then of course, this is the group that I'm going to be working with a lot during tier time as well. They're going to be meeting with me almost every day in a small group setting, and then I'll have like a mini lesson. This is like what they would do on their own. My middle of the road kids, you know, they have some of the same activities. I have their fluency passage looks a little bit different. They use a timer, and they have a 1 minute to read as much as they can from our fluency passage, and that's because in my district we do dibbles, and so it's a really good practice for them, you know, because in dibbles they have a minute to read, you know, the passage, and then they have to retell it. What they do is they read the passage for a minute, and then they do that 3 times in a row, and every time, and then they record their time. So every time they read it, they're trying to, you know, read it faster and faster and build on their fluency. So this particular student really struggles with retell. One of her activities that she's doing, she's reading a book from a list of books that I've picked out for students on her level. So I put a document with their name and what books they could pick from Epic. Because sometimes I find if you just let them go crazy on Epic, they're reading books that are way too easy for them, and that's not helping them. So for this tier time, which is fine, you know, sometimes it's great to just read a book because you want to read it. But for this tier time, I really want them to be reading books at their level. So what I do is I put their name, and then I write like 4 or 5 books that they can read on Epic for this activity. So they go on Epic, they read the book, and then they record themselves retelling it like how they have to do for dibbles. So they don't get to write it down first, they don't get to do any of that. They read the story and then they retell. And the goal is for them to retell as much as they can in 1 minute. So that's another activity that this particular student can do during that tier time. And then when it's her time to meet with me and she's working in a small group with me, we'll be working on some of those areas of difficulties that she has. So my groups are always changing, because some kids might, you know, I might have 4 kids that are struggling with summarizing. I might have 3 kids who are struggling with comprehension. And so like my groups are always changing. I'm never meeting. I don't have a blue group, red group, green group that stays the same all year long. I'm always changing my groups, and sometimes I might have one of my really, really high readers with one of my kind of middle of the road readers, but we're working on summarizing because both kids are having a hard time with summarizing. So what I'll do is, you know, they might be reading, we'll be in the same small group, they might be reading 2 different stories, but my summarizing lesson is the same. So they'll read their stories, and then I'll work with them for, you know, somebody wanted but then, or whatever we're doing to help them summarize. So my groups are very, 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 very flexible, and I like it that way. And I will share with you what I do for like my high kids, like the kids who are just like, what do I do? What do I teach you? So these kids, they are doing like a novel study on their own, basically. So all of their activities center around, right now they're doing the book Wonder. And so they have closed passages that are about wonder for each chapter that they're reading, character charts that they have to do as they read. They have vocabulary words that I post to their OneNote, and they have to define the vocabulary words and use them in a sentence. They also have to, they have to complete journal prompts. They have to they have to complete some comprehension questions for each chapter, and I post all of those to their OneNote, and so they are able to just easily go on, access, and then I have them write out on a piece of paper, because usually I do a lot of things with technology in my classroom. Very rarely are they like using this much paper, but for this like tier time and like for grading purposes, it's just so much easier for me to just take their folders home, look through their papers, look through their stuff. They're good, and then if they've done everything that I want them to do, and I think they've done a lot of work, I can tell that, they've recorded what they've done, they get a sticker on a note card, and I put it in there for the week, and I take out any papers that they don't need, and then I put a new menu in there. My higher kids, so I might meet with them sometimes, like there might be a skill that they're really needing, like for instance, one of my kids who has a 1400 Lexile, 1400, really struggles with summarizing. So that's an area I talked about before, that really happened. I had my kid with a 1400 Lexile and my kid with a 500 Lexile, and we were in a group together because we were all working on summarizing. So it works sometimes you can do that, sometimes you can't, but for that instance I was able to, really have a flexible grouping with levels, so that was good. The last thing I wanted to show you was kind of how I organize the paper flow, because it can get overwhelming. Like if you were having to stock every single folder, like for each kid, like that would be too much. That would be like a hot mess. I take these home every week, look through it, grade it, and then put in the new papers that they need. Oh my God, I would go crazy, and I wouldn't do that. Let's just be honest. So let me show you what I do. Okay, so this is their bin with all of the papers that they might need in it. And the kids know how to use this, and they know to keep it nice and neat. It's funny, I have a parent in here who's like, is in charge of this, and she makes sure it's always nice and neat, and whenever like a paper's out of place, she's like, excuse me, let's fix this. It's great. I love her. Kids know how to use this system. So in the front here, everything's tabbed. So front here we have fluency passages, and then 1, 2, 3, and they're numbered. So if they're on 2, like let's say they're on 2, and they get this out and they're reading about jelly beans. So they're gonna pretty much have this for about a week or so, maybe 3 or 4 days, and after they finish that, they'll keep that one that they already have in their folder, but then they'll come to number 4 and they'll just get a new one out for whatever they need. That way I am not having to do anything. I'm not having to restock their stuff and put new stuff in and take new stuff out. I don't have to do any of that. It's great. Same thing for their closed passages, for Wonder, just for other of the closed passages, they can just do that. The word ladders, I have their word ladders here. It's the same system. Alright guys, I hope that I covered everything. There's kind of a lot with what I do for my tier folders and like tier time. So if you have any questions or I didn't explain something thoroughly, just leave me a comment down below and ask me there, and I will talk to you. I'll try to explain something. So sorry if it was just a lot. It's a lot to talk about. So if you have any questions, go ahead and leave them down in the comment below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you on Monday.